for people joining us. And we also have wonderful spiritual leaders who are going to lead this session. Hamsa from New York is behind the steering wheel. Hamsa, can we display the slide that shows the leaders? Thank you for recording the session. This session is being recorded, so you should know that, but we will make it available then to others who couldn't make it now. So from New York, this is a first, right? That we have multiple institutes doing a virtual session at the same time. And so from New York, Swami Asokananda, Reverend Rudra, Reverend Laksmi, and myself. From Integral Yoga Institute, Fairlawn, New Jersey, Margabandhu and Reverend Premajyothi. From the Yoga Life Society, Reverend Jaganath Carrera. From Princeton, Integral Yoga, Jayadeva. And from Satchidananda Ashram-Yogaville, Reverends Bhagavan and Bhavani. So what a great auspicious group of people. Thank you for displaying that, Hamsa. And so what we're going to be doing is a number of different things. We're going to be doing a memorial service that includes prayers and includes a slideshow honoring the people who have passed, who have sent in pictures and information about people who'd like to be honored. We're going to be doing a very special service called Puja, P-U-J-A, and we'll say more about what a puja is later. And we'll be offering lights, and you, if you have it, will have a candle that you can light at a certain time in the ceremony, so you're directly participating in the service. So a number of wonderful people, and what I'd like to do is each time someone comes up, I'm going to say a little bit, just a tiny bit about their name, who they are, to remind you, and also to say what they're going to say and do. And so I hope to not be intrusive, but to help give you a little running narrative of what's happening. And so now we're lucky enough to have Margabandhu, right, who's the head of the Fairlawn Integral Yoga Institute, who's going to say a couple of words about our view of the journey of the soul, right, from a yogic perspective. So, Hamsa, can we spotlight Margabandhu and Premajyothi? There we go. Margabandhu, you're on.
Okay. Howdy Om, everybody. When we first met Gurdev in the late 60s, 67 or 68, we were very new at his philosophies. And the one thing that, coming from an Italian background and emotional background, when somebody passed, it was very emotional for us, and this condition lasted for a long time. And Gurdev had a way of explaining things that made us feel comfortable with the situation, and he gave us a basic understanding of the physiology of what actually happens. And he explained that, he says, and he talked about the different pranas in the body. He says when the physical body is connected to the astral body by something called a etheric cord. And when the prana leaves the physical body, this etheric cord rises up and remains in the atmosphere for a few days. And they actually done studies after the physical body actually passed, it weighed 2 ounces less. So this energy field of 2 ounces is the samskaras of all that you accumulated through your whole life. So what it does, it meanders around for about 40 days and it comes back to the original place where it left. And that's why we have the service. And then after we have a service, this energy field rises up and goes into the cosmos. And it visits every planet. And it extracts information from every planet. And the time allotment, we're not sure of, but it comes back, and if you believe in reincarnation, it comes back into a physical body that would help them get relieve any of these samskaras that accumulated through the last lifetime. That's basically how he explained it. And he also said that a lot of religions didn't talk about reincarnation, but they alluded to the fact. And me as an altar boy raised in a Catholic organization, the Gurdev says that how could you have original sin if there was no previous incarnation or no previous lifetime. So he explained the physiology of it. And also, as far as samskars, these patterns are concerned, the whole concept of purgatory was started in the second chakra, the Swartz chakra. So he says, and this is what happens when the body, prana leaves the body, this energy field gets stuck in that particular area of the body, and it leaves, the prana leaves the body, and it raises up. And that's how he explained it physiologically. So that's my short, brief talk about how Gurudev felt about reincarnation and the physiology of the body. Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Margabandhu. So now our next speaker is Swami Asokananda. And Swami Asokananda is the spiritual head of the New York Institute Yoga Institute. And he's going to speak a little bit about the notions of life and death and mourning and how do you deal with all that from a yogic perspective. So, Swami Asokananda. Oh, you're on mute.
Okay. Thank you, Shankar. And thank you, Margabandhu, for that beautiful introduction to this topic. When I was living at the Virginia ashram about 11 years ago, I lived there for about 13 years. A friend of mine was dying, and I hadn't seen her for a few weeks. And when I visited her, she was lying on a futon in the middle of her room, and it was pretty shocking for me to see someone who, basically she had just bones and some skin covering the bone. And it was kind of translucent, or had some self-luminosity to it. And when I walked in the room, I froze, because I never saw anyone like that before. I kind of went into a shock state. And she helped me out. She said, prayers and mantras, Swami, prayers and mantras. And I said, oh, yeah. Yes. That's what I came for. And she did pass away a few days later. And I felt a little bad that I didn't know what to do at that moment. I am a student of the Bhagavad Gita, and I know the philosophy that Margabandhu just talked about. And the Gita talks about the fact that we go from childhood to a young person, to an adult, to a middle-aged person, to an old person, and then we leave this body. And they say it's the same uninterrupted continuity of consciousness that moves all through these stages, including leaving the body, going to the stages that Margabandhu talked about, and then entering into another body. The same me that goes through all that. In another verse, the Gita talks about leaving the body is like taking off a worn out shirt and knowing that you'll be getting a new one. And worn out doesn't mean that you're old and in the way. Worn out just means for the experiences that the soul needs to go through, that incarnation is no longer suitable. I know all this philosophy, but still I'm a big crier. Like people, I think, starting to know that don't make me talk at a memorial service. Every time I talk, I can hardly get through it because I just start to cry. And I used to feel bad about that if the Swami can't keep it together. But I sing Swami Satchidananda, my guru, cry. And I said, okay, he cries also. But we know that, too much grief is not useful. I like that I heard that when the Tibetan monks are dying and their family members are around them wailing and saying, don't leave us, they tend to kick the family members out of the room, and they ask the monks to come in and do the mantras, because they know about these different bardos, and they want to be able to. What's that?
Keep going, Swamiji.
Okay. We should know that, when we talk about non-attachment or vairagya, we're not talking about becoming like a rock. My understanding of vairagya is that we love even with more intensity, but without self-interest. And I want to conclude by just saying something that Swami Satchidananda, how he helped me once. There was a Swami at the New York RYI. We were very close friends. And one day we woke up and he was gone. He didn't come to morning meditation. We checked his room, he was gone. And we didn't know what happened to him. A few months later, he contacted me. Turns out he was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He said, I feel so ashamed. I flipped out. I couldn't handle monastic life anymore. I just ran away. But I'm here in Albuquerque and I'm starting a yoga center. I found a girlfriend and I'm living this life here. So about a month later after that, I got a phone call from this lady. It turned out to be his girlfriend. And she wanted me to know that what I knew as Swami Kriyananda had passed away that morning. I said, oh, what happened? He was on a motorcycle, riding a motorcycle, and he hit something. He died instantaneously. He didn't suffer at all. But I was in shock. And I wanted to call his parents. It took a little courage to call his parents to give them my condolences. And I called them. And it turned out they didn't know. I was informing them that their son had died. And I just heard these horrifying shriek at the other end of the phone. I knew the father. The father was a friend of the RYI. I hadn't met the mom, but the father just whimpered, and the mother, I heard her screaming. And I already was in such an unsteady state. So I called Gurudev after that. And I really learned a lot from that conversation with Gurudev. He didn't try to rein in my grief. He didn't encourage me to close down my heart either in the name of non-attachment and being a good Swami. He helped me to find a state between those extremes that enabled me to find some peace in my own heart and to be in a state that could benefit the soul moving on to the next phase of its journey. And it kind of echoed what my dying friend had said to me, the best way to show my love is prayers and mantras, not excessive grief, not closing down the heart and becoming, like Paul Simon said, I am a rock, I am an island, a rock feels no pain. Somewhere in the middle is the right place to be. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you so much, Swami Asokananda. That was beautiful. Now we're going to hear from Reverend Rudra in New York, who's going to talk a little about those who passed because of COVID-19, right? And some of the spiritual ways that we can think about this. So, Reverend Rudra. And his tagline says Integral Yoga Institute. That's who Reverend Rudra is. And Hamsa is going to spotlight him. Reverend Rudra, you're on.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make sure you can hear me.
Yes.
So I've been contemplating this time that we're all experiencing and the loved ones we've lost, some by this new virus that took us somewhat by surprise. Some people said we kind of saw it coming. Some people warned us, others didn't take it seriously. And now we're at this period now where in other places, they're even starting to not take it so seriously. And we're seeing rises and falls and rises and falls. Early on when I came to Integral Yoga, one of the first teachings I heard from Swami Satchidananda was, when you get into yoga and meditation, don't be surprised if the religion of your birth starts to mean more to you as you go deeper and you find it in your soul. And from Judaism, each year on Rosh Hashanah, there's a prayer that I'd like to read to you. Each year at the beginning of the year, the spiritual new year, we read, how many will pass on and how many will be born? Who will live and who will die? Who will live a long life and who will come to an untimely end? Who will perish by fire and who by water? Who by sword and who by beast? Who by hunger and who by thirst? Who by earthquake and who by plague? When you hear that last part of that first paragraph, who by plague, I don't know that any of us could have seen that so many would have been lost by this plague that seemed to come from somewhere, specific, from certain practices, certain diets. But we can't really have the foresight to know exactly what it is, how bad it is, who to believe, what to listen to. Should I still wear my mask? Am I done wearing my mask? Should I wear gloves? Can I get it from a surface? I can't get it from a surface. And Leonard Cohen, the great Leonard Cohen, took that prayer out of the Rosh Hashanah liturgy, and he turned it into a song, Who by Fire. And he added a very interesting line at the end of his singing of that, which was, who shall I say is calling? Ultimately, as yogis, religious people, non-religious people, whether you believe in God or whether you don't believe in God, we don't really know when we take our first breath, when we take our last breath, and we especially can't foresee how we will take our last breath. Like Swami Asokananda's story, a motorcycle. I'm sure the former Swami Kriyananda wasn't putting his helmet on that morning, expecting an accident. I've heard stories of people with COVID-19 not expecting all of a sudden to have breathing problems, not expecting to start hallucinating. So many of the symptoms took them by surprise. Suddenly a fever, next thing they know, they couldn't breathe. Some people made it, some people didn't. Who would be taken by COVID? Who would not be taken by COVID? Who would survive and who would perish from this mysterious virus that has affected all of our lives, affected us so much that we're meeting in this virtual way tonight. I had two very close friends of mine who, in their 90s, innocently had their physical therapists come to their house, as they did many times weekly. The physical therapist was coughing, didn't even realize at the time that they were passing it on, and those two beloved people perished. So when we take that brilliant Leonard Cohen line, who shall we say is calling? And while we remember those we've lost tonight in this memorial service, I'd like to ask all of you to think of everyone you've lost, whether recently or a while ago. And think of that line, who shall I say is calling? When do we know that that last breath will come? We don't know, and we don't know who will be calling. We don't know what time, and we don't know how it'll happen. We just know at some point, everyone we know and ourselves will come to that place where we will have that last breath or that last accident. And as Margabandhu said, float into that eternal consciousness, that cosmic consciousness, and that drop of water will rejoin the ocean. And we won't know ourselves as these bodies by these names, by these thoughts, by these emotions. Perhaps somewhere that some of the samskaras will be planted in our consciousness. The seeds of karma will be placed somewhere in our Anandamaya koshas in the future. And we'll have certain memories that seem familiar, but we can't really place because they weren't this body, this mind, this name experiencing it. And that maybe that future body and name will be experiencing those seeds of karma through a much different lens. So I encourage us all to remember those who had a specific lens and how our specific lens saw those that we loved so much in the physical form have moved on to be pure spirit. And although we'll miss our time together, the body, the mind, the exchange, the interaction, as long as we can think of them, they'll always be with us in our hearts.
Thank you so much, Rudra. That was beautiful. Now we're going to hear from Jayadeva, who's going to talk a little bit about those who passed for reasons other than COVID. So, Jayadeva. And just unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay. We're all here together, all of us. And some of us are in the midst of this embodied state. Some have moved past this embodied state, but we're still all here together. And we're here to be in relationship and love. Serving, playing, exploring together. We know that these circumstances in this created existence continuously change, but our essence remains ever unchanging. This essence Rudra just mentioned about letting go of the drop into the ocean. And the essence of the drop and the essence of the ocean aren't different at all. Our relationships, especially those knit in love, have an eternal connection too. When someone goes through what we call death, there's a mystery. And there's some things that we come to understand, but there's still a mystery that quite beautifully blesses us in not knowing. There's so many we were just talking about who've recently left their bodies through this COVID-19. And we're holding them all now in our love. But we also want to recognize all the others who've recently changed form from other causes. Those whom we've loved and have been important in our lives. I'd like to shift a little bit from talking about and have us all talk to keeping this beautiful, heartfelt connection which we have. And so right now I want to speak to those of you who've moved on for whatever reason. We want to speak with you and be with you now in this service. We miss connecting with you as we've been used to. Some of you moved on after time with a particular disease or malady or some accident. Some from just simply finishing with this particular life's venture. And some from other reasons or ways. We want to give attention to each of you, letting you know that we cherish our relationships with you and hold you dearly in our heart forever. You have and will always be dear to us. We miss you. We pray that you do well and continue with your ventures. And we pray that we can swiftly learn to hold and cherish you in this new way of being together. Thank you so much for your love and joy, for the lessons and delights that you have been and are for us still. We hold you in light and love, aware that you will continue to share yourself in your own special ways. Please know our love is always with you.
Thank you, Jayadeva. So beautiful. It reminds me that our spiritual teacher, Swami Satchidananda, always said, you say that somebody is dead and gone, but gone where? He says the saying is not dead and disappeared from existence, it's dead and gone. They passed away. Well, where did they go? They passed on. Where did they go? So this is us acknowledging our love for them as they were with us and also where they are now in their ongoing journey. So let's now turn our attention to a very special service called a puja, P-U-J-A. We have the Mass in Catholicism. We have the Seder Passover, right? A wonderful, wonderful service. Well, the puja is the Eastern way of acknowledging and worshiping God. But it's more than acknowledging and worshiping God. God is everywhere, in everything, as everything. But it's a little hard to have a conversation with that everywhere God, right? So if you want to ask God to do something, it's helpful to somehow personalize him or her or it. So in the puja, we're saying, hey, God, could you please come here into my home, into this light or into this beautiful altar, which you see, yantra, which you see to me, behind me. I'll say a moment about what that is. Could you please come here so we can worship you? And then we can ask you to do something for us. And that asking is to take care of our loved ones. They're on their journey. Please help them on their continued journey and help us who've been left behind, because we need comfort and we love them. And as Jayadeva said, we miss them. So the puja is like inviting people into your home. So what would you do if you had a guest and you were inviting him or her into the home? Well, you'd offer them something to drink. You'd give them a comfortable place to sit. If they were coming on a long, dusty road, you might even say, hey, would you like to freshen up, take a little shower before we start? And then, of course, you'd give them some wonderful food. You might have some nice flowers there to greet them. And this is the puja. And so as the pujaris, that's the name of the person who's doing the service, as the pujaris offer light or food or incense, you should feel like you're doing it with them. Don't feel like you're just watching somebody do something on the screen. Feel like you're there. You're the one offering the light to God, who's actually come into your home. You're the one who's offering the food to God, who's come into your home. And then you're going to say, God, we've loved you, we've worshiped you. Could you please take care of our loved ones and take care of us? So the puja will be conducted by Swami Chidananda, Reverend Laksmi Scalise, and Reverend Rudra Swartz, who you just heard from. And as they do the puja, I'll say a little something quietly to explain what they're doing. And Reverend Premajyothi will be chanting a peace chant in the background, Om Shanti, which means peace. God, please give us peace. And we'll start by Jayadeva, who you just heard from, blowing the conch. Now, the conch is sort of, in Judaism, it's like the ram's horn, right? In other traditions, it's like acknowledging the glory of the God that we are asking to please bless us and our loved ones. And then Jayadeva, at the end of the puja, will also blow the conch 3 more times. So Jayadeva will begin, we'll spotlight him, and then we'll be spotlighting Reverend Laksmi, Rudra, and Swami Chidananda as we begin the puja now.
Beloved Lord, we are gathered together in your presence to sanctify the memory of our beloved brothers and sisters and animal companions, and to ask your blessings to their continued well-being and ultimate liberation of their immortal souls. please let them feel free to speedily continue on their way for union with you. Let us in turn remember and take consolation in this immortality. Until we finish the puja, let nothing distract us. Please protect us from these obstacles and allow us to have full faith, zeal, and guidance of our beloved Gurudeva. May all our prayers, good thoughts, and the service performed here be instruments of your grace to ease their journey.
Omkaram bindu samyuktam nityam dhyayanti yoginaha amadam mokshadam chaiva omkaraya namo namaha om omkaraya namo namaha Om Omkaraya Namo Namaha. Om, united with the source on which the yogis ever dwell, grants desires and liberation. Salutations to the Omkaram. Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Satchidananda Murtaye Nishprapanjaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase. The Guru is auspiciousness, embodiment of truth, knowledge, bliss. Salutations to the one who is beyond the world, peaceful, independent, and radiant.
Om Gum Gurave Namaha. Om Gum Gurave Namaha. Om Gum Gurave Namaha. May all the holy waters of heaven and earth flow through me into this water, sanctifying it for the puja.
Om Antar Jyotir Bahir Jyotir Pratyag Jyotir Parat Paraha Jyotir Jyoti Svayam Jyotir Atma Jyotir Shivoshmiyaham Atma Jyotir Mano Jyotir Jyotir Shakshushva Pashyati Sabhaya Vyantara Jyotir Sa Jyotir Shiva Uchyate. Om, inner light, outer light, omnipresent light, supreme, supreme light of lights, independent light, atmic light, that auspiciousness I am, light of the self, light of the mind, light that sees through the eyes, that auspicious pure light is within and without.
Let us experience your presence here, O Lord, in the form of this yantra and of this light.
Om Shanti.
Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Om 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 Shanti Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om.
Reverend Lakshmi is now offering water at the base of the candle
Om Shanti,
as if washing the feet of the guests who's coming to your
Om
home.
Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti,
He is
Om.
now offering water,
Om Shanti,
same way that we would
Om
offer a
Shanti,
drink
Om
to the beloved
Shanti,
guest who's
Om.
coming to God.
Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om.
She is now putting a
Om
garland
Shanti, Om
around the guest,
Shanti, Om
a way of
Shanti,
honoring
Om.
this guest as someone
Om
sacred,
Shanti,
as we are
Om
now
Shanti,
worshiping
Om
God who's come into our
Shanti,
presence
Om.
and garland
Om
divinely.
Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om.
She's now putting holy air
Om
on the
Shanti,
candle,
Om Shanti, Om
recognizing the divinity of
Shanti,
God
Om.
and that
Om
divinity in
Shanti,
all of us.
Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om. Om Shanti, 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 Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om. Om Shanti,
She's now offering incense.
Om Shanti, Om.
Incense pervades the
Om
entire
Shanti,
air,
Om
and this is
Shanti,
acknowledging that God
Om
is
Shanti,
everywhere.
Om Shanti, 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 Om Shanti,
Reverend Lakshmi is
Om
now
Shanti,
offering
Om
light to the light,
Shanti, Om.
recognizing the divine
Om
as the light within us,
Shanti, Om
and also to purify
Shanti,
us
Om
as we worship God
Shanti, Om.
and honor our departed loved ones.
Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om. Om Shanti Om Shanti
In the same way
Om
that you would feed
Shanti Om
your beloved family and friends to come
Om
to your home, how
Shanti
much more would we want to
Om
feed the
Shanti
Lord
Om
who's coming
Shanti
here because we are asking for it
Om
and offering
Shanti Om
food and beverage?
Shanti Om Shanti Om.
Dear Lord, we pray to be blessed with your divine comfort and grace, and to see your love and light in all beings, to see all in you as we pray.
Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva, tvameva bandhuscha saka tvameva, tvameva vidyadra tvameva, tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Thou art my mother, my father, thou art. Thou art my family, my friend, thou art. Thou art my knowledge, my wealth, thou art. Thou art my all, O light of all lights, thou art.
Waiting for chanting.
Let's start.
Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti
Jaganath
Om Shanti
and
Om
Laksmi are offering flower
Shanti
petals,
Om Shanti Om
offering it to the
Om
divine being who has now
Shanti
come in our
Om
presence
Shanti Om
to show our love
Shanti
and
Om
appreciation
Om
for coming from
Shanti
the
Om
transcendental universal
Shanti
absolute
Om
form
Shanti
to a form
Om
where we can worship
Om
and praise it.
Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Om 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 Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Om.
pujaris will now offer camphor light. Camphor dissolves into nothing, and it's our way of saying, Lord, remove our ego so that we can merge into you.
Om glory to the Lord of the world. Om glory to the Lord of the world. Who removed the devotees' troubles. Who removed the devotees' troubles. In the twinkling of an eye. Om glory to the Lord of the world. You are my mother and my father, in whom else can I take shelter? O Lord, in whom else can I take shelter? There is none beside you in whom, there is none beside you in whom I could put my hope. Om glory to the Lord of the world. 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 Om glory to the Lord of the world.
As Swami Chidananda offers the light to you, using your hands, take it in and feel it blessing you as well as the spirits and souls who have departed. Reverend Rudra will now recite the closing chants of the puja.
Om Masato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Mritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from unreal to real. Lead us from darkness to the light. Lead us from the fear of death to knowledge of immortality. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. May the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May the light of truth overcome all darkness.
Victory to that light.
Jai Shri Satguru Maharaj Ki Jai.
Thank you, Jayadeva. Beautiful. Now, while the Lord is with us, We're going to hear some beautiful talks by Reverends Bhagavan and Bhavani Metro, who are in Virginia, Yogaville.
What a beautiful puja. The puja is not just a ceremony, but inviting God in, or rather inviting our awareness that God is always present. God being infinite is everywhere, not just standing beside us, but in us, as us. When we do the puja, we invite that energy to come out. And we take that energy and we bless our loved ones who have passed with it. They're on a journey now that we can't follow them on, at least not yet. And in that journey, they need energy to go on. So by attending this service and this puja, you have invited your loved ones to experience this energy. They're like jet planes flying now. They're out of their body. They're released from the constriction of this body. And they're flying now to a more beautiful experience. They've graduated. They're going on now to higher education. And when that jet plane may be a little low on fuel, another big plane comes over, drops down, and fuels it. That's what we've done for your loved ones here today. So now they're going to fly higher and further. Bhavani and I were going to see her sister in Kansas this spring in March. And because she was very ill, and because of the pandemic, we weren't able to fly. Everything was closed down. So we didn't get to go. And we were fully expecting her to pass. But the way life moves is very unexpected. We can never know what's going to happen. The future is a mystery to us. And we got the call, but it was not Bhavani's sister who had passed, but her stepbrother, Steve, who was a lovely, lovely man, a man of great humor, a man of great intelligence. And he was the assistant district attorney in Wichita, Kansas. Always fun, always serving people, always happy. But when you get that first call, it's always such a shock because we weren't expecting that. We were expecting something else possibly. And maybe it was the same way with you. When your loved one passed, it's such a shock at first. And usually for the first few days, we can't believe it. We can even feel like we're in a dream. And we can't believe it's happening. And then as a little time goes on, a few days, a week, maybe that feeling can subside. But other feelings will come in. Why me? Why them? Why us? Why did it happen? And these are questions we can't always answer. We sometimes can't get an answer to them. But we ask them anyway because our hearts are suffering. And we're trying to find some meaning in this. And as we go, our questioning can turn into anger. And our anger can run a while. And then it can turn into depression because we will say, we couldn't do anything about it. We did everything. Still, this comes to us. And then as time goes on, we have to accept they're gone. We can't see them anymore. We can't be with them anymore. But we can then remember the wonderful times that we had with them, the wonderful times they had, the wonderful way that they were. And this process takes a while. It's the normal grieving process that we all go through. And it takes a while. But eventually, the love that we had for them, the joy that we had together arises again in our heart. The depression can go away or get less. The anger will get less. And gradually over a course of some time, and we mean sometimes this takes years, the joy will arise in full and the pain will subside. So probably if you've lost a loved one, you're having some of these experiences. You may be walking in the store feeling fine and suddenly you break into tears. When our grandson passed way too young at 19, for the next week after his passing, we would walk around and suddenly we would hear music, his favorite song coming on the radio, his favorite song over the loudspeakers in the dollar store. And it would stun us and we would stop and tears would fill our eyes. But they haven't gone anywhere. They're still here with us. Death is not something that ends life. Death is a part of life. We're born, we have a time in the body, and then we pass. And all of that is in this great infinite consciousness that we call God. So death is not the finality. It's just a part of life that we're going through. And if we can remember that, it can help us in our suffering.
Well said, well said.
Thank you.
I love that the memory of our grandson Thor would come so unexpectedly. It really was. His favorite songs would show up in the most unusual places. But what I want to share with you all is, interestingly enough, growing up, my uncle was a mortician, and he had a beautiful funeral home. And so I had a lot of experience with death and dying at a young age. There were a lot of bodies coming in and out, a lot for a young child to look at and realize, wait a minute, we're all going there. Eventually, every single person, this form will go. It's the natural way of things. Sometimes earlier, sometimes later, but it's still going. Now, the thing that was interesting about that was later on, I had my 6 children, and then I was fortunate enough to be at the births of most of the grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And besides being at the bedside of others who were transitioning out of their body into this new reality for them. And what I discovered, which was quite awesome, was it's the exact same energy when you're birthing a baby. The room gets very quiet. The breathing changes. The room gets very quiet. And then all of a sudden, the baby takes a breath and everybody cheers. And it's amazing to feel that. Then, when you're sitting by the bedside of someone leaving the body, their breathing changes. The room gets really quiet, very, very quiet. And the soul passes on. And there's a moment where you see the exact similarity between that entry in and the entry out again. It's a beautiful thing. It's what we're all doing. If you believe in reincarnation, I suppose that's part of it. However, for me, what it said is it's continuing. It's the same energy, transmigration of the soul, moving through lifetime and lifetime and lifetime until we finally go home, whatever that home is. So there's a sweetness about it. We remember our loved ones because every single time you think about them, they're with you. Every time. My mother has been gone since I was 28 years old. And to this day, oftentimes, if I'm having a hard day or something, I can stand in the shower and I'll be crying and tears and stuff. And I'll think about my mother. And it brings her energy to me. And it's very sweet. The same with our beloved Gurudev. He left the form and trauma filled all of our lives. And yet Gurudev told us on and on, over and over again, the year before his Mahasamadhi, that when he leaves the body, he will be with us even closer than he was then in the form. And he could be with us more. In my life, that's true. In my life, that's true. And I hope it is for all of you. So I leave that with one other thought. Keep your I love yous current. One never knows when that transition's happening. So keep saying, I love you to all the people you care about. Every single person. And you know, even the people you don't know so well. You don't have to say it out loud, but you can look at them with a loving heart and feel that too. So keep those I love yous as current as you can. And now we have a beautiful reading. It's one of our favorites and we've used in memorials. I have only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened. Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I and you are you. And the old life that we lived so fondly together is untouched, unchanged. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by the old familiar name. Speak of me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes that we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without an effort, without the ghost of a shadow upon it.
May you and your loved ones always be blessed. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you so much, Reverends Bhagavan and Bhavani. What beautiful sharings. Thank you so much. And now we're going to take a look at the images of those who passed. If we did not depict them in the best light, I apologize. If we did not say the best things about them, I apologize. And if you're on here and tried to get us an image and we didn't get it in time, I apologize for that too. The variety of people that we'll be honoring now is from the young to the old, from our brothers, our sisters, our parents, our friends, and we even have one beloved animal family companion, a pet. So as we are doing this, I won't say anything, you'll be able to see the images, but Reverend Laksmi, who is a gong master, will be playing the Tibetan bowls in the background as we look and see and love and honor each of these people and animals. Lord, please bless us and guide all those who we see now, as well as us, their friends and family and community members, as well as all those not shown who need your help and guidance. We remember, love, and honor them all. Thank you, Reverend Laksmi. And now we're going to hear the final message from Reverend Jaganath, who will also do some of the closing prayers, and then I'll say a final goodbye and thank you. Reverend Jaganath.
Very difficult to know what to say. So many heartfelt, wise words. Yet still, I think there must be times we wonder when we lose a loved one, the feeling of it somehow not being fair comes up. Maybe somehow unjust, or why now? And even people of faith may wonder, why does God allow this kind of suffering to happen? And in some ways, that could be the most terrible kind of loneliness, the loneliness of not experiencing, knowing, or having full faith in God's presence. So I was thinking that it would be really nice if we had a direct report from someone who's experienced God's presence. Listening to those words then is not just expressing a comforting sentiment. They're words whose power to bring comfort and understanding and insight are born from a personal experience. And we can find these reports in every faith tradition. There was one that came to mind to me when I was asked to speak, and it's Psalm 139. And I'll be reading it, maybe making a comment or two. And again, I invite you to not see this as simply presenting a comforting sentiment. But expressing the truth. The message is clear, the message is direct. God indeed is always with us when we are loved. Psalm 139. Lord, you see deep into my heart, so you know everything about me. You know when I'm resting, when I'm working. From heaven, you see my thoughts. You notice everything I do and everywhere I go. Even before I speak a word, you know what I will say. And with your powerful arm, you protect me from every side. And then comes this next verse. To me, is an indication of why this is a report from someone who's experienced. Because it's a fascinating thing to hear. After saying all of this, the psalmist says, I can't understand all of this. He's just mentioned all these wonderful things. He says, I can't understand all of this. Yet he says next, such wonderful knowledge is far above me. The psalmist is talking about knowledge of not knowing. Meaning that this kind of knowledge doesn't come through just simple logic, a progression of thoughts, just something you read in a book or you hear somewhere. It's how we experience love. We all know love is eternal because we always say to our loved one, our love will never die, or I'll love you forever, or forever in a day. Because it's so huge and expansive. We didn't arrive at that feeling. When we say that, we mean it. And we didn't arrive at that feeling through a logical thought. It's what we experience. And the psalmist is saying this. But then he gets a little mischievous the rest of the psalm. He starts to imagine, it's like a thought experiment. Is there any way I can escape God? Is there any way I can get away from God? Because if I can't get away from God, that means God really loves me. God won't let go of me. I don't have to hold on to God. This is what he says. After I can't understand all of this, such wonderful knowledge is far above me, comes the mischievous part. Is where could I go that would elude your spirit or your sight? If I were to climb up to the highest heavens, you would be there. If I were to dig down to the world of those souls who have passed, you would be there. Suppose I had wings like the dawning day and flew across the ocean. Even then, your powerful arm would guide and protect me. Or suppose I said, I'll hide in the dark until night comes to cover me. But you even see in the dark because daylight and dark are all the same to you. So the invitation is to take this report to heart. In ways we can't understand, we're always linked not only to our loved ones, but to each other. We're all waves in an ocean. We come up, we call ourselves a wave, and we have shape and form and force, but we've never been separate from the ocean. Our loved ones are just waves. The waves have subsided. They haven't really disappeared. We say we lost them because we don't see them. But they really have just gone to another room. So let us see the divine in and through each other as we reach out to support each other and to love each other, to comfort each other, to know in the end that we are never outside of or without the loving presence of God. Thank you. God bless you all with peace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you so much, Reverend Jaganath. Now we're going to do the candle lighting ceremony. So if you do have a candle nearby, you should get ready to light it. Reverend Bhavani will invoke God with a prayer to honor your loved ones as you light your candles now. If you don't have a candle, you can use your cell phone flashlight. Bhavani.
We now turn to you.
And I'm sorry, and Reverend Bhagavan will be also waving the light to the altar as Bhavani reads the prayer. Thank you, Bhavani.
We now turn to you, our beloved departed. You are not alone. We are with you as you go from love into love, carrying with you only love. May our love carry you and open the way.
Let these lights light our hearts and light the hearts of our departed loved ones. And now Reverend Jaganath will do the final closing prayers with some reflection on their meaning.
We'll be ending with repetition, 9 repetitions of the Maha Mrityunjaya mantra, which means the great mantra of liberation. It's known to be an extremely powerful mantra, healing, comforting, able to remove obstacles. So we'll do that 9 times with a translation at the end. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiya Mamratat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiya Mamratat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiya Mamratat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiya Mamratat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiya Mamratat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiya Mamratat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiya Mamratat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamive Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiya Mamritat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamive Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiya Mamritat. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Worship you, all seeing one. Fragrant you nourish bounteously. From the fear of death may you cut us free to realize immortality. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Asato ma satgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Lead us from unreal to real, lead us from darkness to the light, lead us from the fear of death to the knowledge of immortality. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May the light of truth overcome all darkness. Victory to that light. Jai Shri Satguru Maharaj Ki.
Jai.
Jai. Jai.
Thank you all so much. Thanks to the ministers and swamis and clergy and all of our other spiritual leaders from the different integral yoga institutes. Thank you all. There would be no memorial service without you and your loved ones who we've honored. Please go in peace and God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend Shankar, for letting this beautiful idea flow through you. And not just the idea, letting it manifest in a beautiful way. Thank you.
True. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Beautifully done.
Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Yes.
Yes.
A
Thank you.
blessing, a blessing.
Blessing.
All you bright lights.
Yeah.
You get a gallery view to see everyone?
Oh, that's a good idea. Oh, hi,
Oh.
everyone.
Oh, thank
Nice
you.
to see you.
Blessings.
You're welcome, Harvey.
You
You're
can put
welcome.
your mic on now if you want.
Hey.
You can have the mic on now.
Ah.
You're welcome, Chandrika. You're welcome.
Everyone.
Great service.
Yes. Thank
So
you.
many parts of it were just beautiful, so moving and loving and caring and full of all that loving energy. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Blessing. Thank you, Shankar, for putting all this together and all those helpers you had putting it all together.
Thank you.
Oh,
You're welcome,
My
Hilton.
blessing.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Shankar, where's the prasad?
yeah, now you're talking. Man. Okay.
Well, when is there ever integral yoga puja or celebration of any kind without prasad? We'll have to all go get some chocolate.
BYOP, bring your own prasad.
Yeah, yeah.
BYOP, bring your own prasad.
Very, very nice. Everything was very, very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hilda.